I'm Simon Rosenberg from the NDN NPI conglomerate that is helping put on this event today. And I just want to welcome you all. And just one thing that is that we're recording this, so if everyone could turn off their mobile devices and unhook from the great connectedness that we all have for a few minutes, that would be helpful. We had an event in New York yesterday where we had incredible interference, actually, in the mic system. And so please just do us a favor and turn off for a little bit and enjoy live entertainment here at NPI. I just want to, just to set up this event, I mean, for those of you who are new to this work of the New Politics Institute, you know, our basic premise is that there are three big changes happening in the world that are making the politics of the 21st century very different from the 20th century. And that for either political party or either ideological movement to have the kind of success that progressives had in the 20th century, they're going to have to do three things. They're going to have to offer a new governing agenda that meets the great governing challenges of our time. They're going to have to master the new media and technology that's changing the way that we all communicate. And they're going to have to understand and speak to the new demographics of America. And the New Politics Institute, I can say I'm so proud of the work that Pete and the team that have done at NPI, because I think we've really helped provide a lot of thoughts and insights and thinking into numbers 2 and 3 on that agenda, the way that media and technology are changing the way that we advocate and communicate and speak, and also understanding how the new audiences are opening up a whole new politics for the country. And if you are interested in keeping and learning more about this big argument, I have it right here, and we have it outside. Pete and I have written a major essay in Mother Jones magazine that's on the stands now on their website. There's also, I think, hard copies out here, in the, which if you want to take a look and learn more, please do. But today we're here to drill down on what has really been one of the most, you know, it's amazing. I'm 44 now. It's hard to believe, but you know, in the ancient days of the Dean campaign, just 4 years ago, we saw really the first, I would say, internet campaign of the 21st century, the end of broadcasts, whatever the things that you want to describe what it was. But what was amazing about it, as innovative, as powerful it was, it really developed a new model that we're all now working off of in the way that we can rearrange our relationship to citizens. We're not treating them as couch potatoes, but as partners in our fight, is that amazingly, back then, there was no social networking sites, right? And there was no YouTube, right? Just a few years ago. And it's like me talking about how when I started at ABC News in 1985, there were no fax machines. We had telexes, right? For the people in this room, I'm sure there are a lot of people here who don't even know what telexes were. You know, that was only 20 years ago, right? But just 4 years ago, two of the major and most powerful tools that are being used in politics and advocacy today didn't exist. And we're here today to explore social networking, clearly one of the most important innovations that have happened in technology and in advocacy. And I want to turn it over to the leader of NPI, the director, Pete Leiden, who's just done a phenomenal job at shepherding this thing forward. Pete, thanks very much for being here today.
Space there. Now I'm live. Thanks again, Simon. Thanks to everybody. There's some seats in here. Fill it out here. There's a few seats in the middle here. And thanks. We got a live, it's going live webcasting here, live streaming. It's actually going out exactly right now. And we've also got Politics TV here, who always films all this and will archive it and get it out there on their site, our site as well. So we've got, you're in some ways a studio audience. Thanks for being here. Simon had a nice frame about what we're doing with the New Politics Institute, but I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit more on what we've been doing recently here. Is we essentially are basically helping progressives, broadly speaking, understand the changes in technology, new media, and demographics that are really transforming our politics, as Simon mentioned there. And one of the ways we do that is we connect up basically people who really get this tech, really get this media, really get these kind of different constituencies, and really also have a real passion of how to move that into politics, or either know politics really well and actually really get these technologies, new media, or demographics. We're fusing the links between the people who get tech, the people that get politics, and we're trying to really accelerate these changes as fast as we can. Now, one of the things we did is, we've been around for 2.5 years. In 2006, we said, hey, we're going to do a kind of a new tools campaign for the 2006 election. We just said, let's just cut through the crap. There's so much confusion out there what to do. We're going to basically boil down like 4 no-brainer things that everybody could just do that cycle and really run with the ball. One was just use cable, like shift your ad buys from broadcast to cable. Another was basically engage the blogs as assets, not as something to fear. Another one was speak in Spanish, which was just obvious with this growingly powerful and important constituency. And the final one was use search, basically buy search ads, which is just, again, a no-brainer. Just buy, search ads. This year, though, in 2007, in the summer, we launched the second phase, which is the 2007 New Tools Search, or the New Tools campaign, and we did 4 new ones, of which this is the last session here. We launched this in the summer, and one of the things we said is we have to reimagine video, so it's all about web video, and we had a great kind of sessions on that. We said you've got to also go mobile. Text, we're now getting into the texting is really becoming very commonplace, but also there's kind of more advanced uses of mobile. It's really coming down the pike. Go mobile. The third one was target your marketing, really how to use databases better, which really informs all these tools. And the fourth one, which is the one we're doing here, which we're winding up the kind of fall rollout of the tools campaign, is leverage social networks. And one of the reasons that this is the last one, there's two reasons for this. One is at some fundamental level, politics has always been about social networking. I mean, really, if you go back to the early 20th century, it was the ward boss getting all the immigrant groups together and everybody on the block, to the polls and getting them organized. If it was in the middle of the century with the kind of union guys, it was, getting your friends, family, mother, father, everybody in the clan to the polls, which at that time, in the middle of the century, 1950s, almost 50% of the electorate was somehow tied into the social network of unions. But here we are, we're at a phase now where we are now taking a tool, social networking tools, which are ramping up the ability to do this politicking, do this social networking, getting friends, family, people into politics at just an order of magnitude difference. And it's that kind of capability which is really, really so exciting for so many people in politics. That's one reason we think it's really a great way to tap this tools thing. The second reason, which I think is really important, is it is the most undeveloped place right now of these tools we've already been speaking about. Like we said, there were the no-brainers of last season. These ones that are emerging here, web video and others, I think there's a little more to bite on what to do. It's really not clear how do you use these tools in politics, in any kind of like absolutely no-brainer. Here's what you do, doom, 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 doom. And so what we do, this is kind of what NPI does best, is what we do is we don't take something that's totally obvious and just drill it down through the system. We take problems that are harder, we take things that are emerging, we try to figure it out on the fly. And what we do is pull together some of the top people that can really help us do that. And that's exactly what we've done for this event today. We have pulled together basically a terrific crew of folks here, and I'm going to introduce them briefly here, and then we're going to basically introduce them one by one. But we've put together a kind of group that we think can really bring to the table really insights into this emerging new space. And also we're going to have a lot of time at the end, hopefully, to talk and engage, because I know there's a lot of folks here that could easily be on this lectern, because I'm seeing quite a few that we could have easily had up here. So we really want to draw your expertise. The first one is Chris Kelly here, is right here on the far end here. Chris, for those of you who don't know him, is the Chief Privacy Officer of Facebook, and he has had his hands full recently here. With big initiatives now, and advertising they're rolling out here. Also, good old Cuomo up in New York has been kind of giving you a little hassle once in a while. But it's basically, Chris is really the absolute ground zero hot seat of what's going on here. And he's also the basically the head of global public policy for Facebook as well. He's been great to actually come here and lay out 5 big ways that, in fact, social networking is really affecting politics. On top of that, despite this incredibly busy schedule, he has written a memo, the final memo of, again, this new tools series on what to do here in social networking and politics. That's going to be available after this in hard copy here. It's also now live on our site. Anyone can get it. You can download it, send it around. He'll be talking in a minute here. The second person we've got is Cheryl Conti, who is from Fleishman-Hillard, now in the Bay Area, although she's been a long time here in the Bay Area here, or not Bay Area, here in the DC area. I'm from the Bay Area. I've actually come in from San Francisco for this. But she's now moved out my way, and she's helping Fleishman-Hillard really think through this exploding world here. They're trying to kind of consolidate their sources there and really make that a world center for what you're doing around the world on that. But even so, she's also had a lot of expertise in using these tools of social networking and blogs and the social technologies with clients like Witness, the ACLU, and others that I think she can really talk to a broader progressive crew about how that would work. The third person here is Ben Rattray. Ben is the founder and CEO of a really interesting site called Change.org. Change.org kind of also represents, instead of you get beyond the kind of Facebook, MySpace space, there's all these other smaller and very, very interesting, more focused social networking sites. His is among the most interesting ones there. There are ways to raise money. They're showing how, in fact, this is a very good way to raise money, these social networking kind of vehicles. He's going to talk about that, as well as the way that they are essentially coalescing people around how to change social issues and increasingly political involvement, too, and how you can actually move that into your own websites. And he'll be talking about that. He's also from the Bay Area. And ultimately, we've got John Hlinko here. John has, as you say, been following the ball of this story for a long time here, and we're really, really happy to have him here. John was with the original MoveOn when MoveOn was just literally trying to be a petition to stop the impeachment of Clinton. He was involved at that level. He was also the founder of the Draft Wesley Clark movement in the cycle before this. He is now basically the CEO and president and CEO of Grassroots Enterprises, which is, again, a media communications firm here in DC, has a lot of kind of clients and people that they're advising on this same space. So we have got a terrific group here, great group. Love to have them laid out. They'll each lay out for a few minutes their own kind of thoughts on this space. Some of them will have PowerPoints, and then we will open it up to all you. So first will be Chris.
Thank you very much, Pete, and thank you, Simon, for having us here today, and thank you all for coming out. We think that this will be a very interesting conversation. I'm going to run through fairly quickly some of the key observations that we've made so far, but first I want to really emphasize how important it is that politics has always been about social networks. It's always been about people telling their friends about candidates, issues, just as they tell them about everything that's going on in their lives. And now we've built an infrastructure through Facebook and other sites like MySpace and YouTube even to share this in a real-time way with friends and in a terribly, terribly efficient manner. The idea that this could be used for politics shouldn't be foreign to anyone. There's still a lot of discussions in this town about, will technology really leverage? I was having a great conversation on the way in with someone around whether this was the 1948 or 1952 moment, the way that television started to sweep the landscape of politics. And the guess was that there's been exponential change. So this could even be the 1960 of technology because of the way that social networking sites have really radically transformed the arena. At Facebook, we like to think of ourselves not so much as a social networking site, but as a social utility, a way to set up the connections that you have between your friends to reflect the social graph. And we build technology that works to facilitate that sharing of information, makes it terribly efficient and meaningful. And so with that, I wanted to, and with that sort of in the background the whole way, I wanted to talk about the 5 ways that we've identified and pinpointed in the piece that NPI is releasing today, how political figures can use the type of social technologies like Facebook. So first of all, we're focused on branding and the meaning of particular politicians or causes. What does your cause or candidate stand for? How do you present yourself on these sites? And obviously on sites like Facebook or MySpace, it's the profile is the basic setup. We're constantly working on enhancements to profiles and ways to interact with users. You've seen us launch in the past week Facebook Pages, which will also allow candidates and causes to have a canonical representation on Facebook, in addition to the way that we've done supporters and have had supporters and candidate pages already, and the way that they plug in to the US Politics application. You've also seen us update the US Politics application in the last week, working with a media partner, ABC News, to begin actually providing more direct interaction around political figures. I think that you'll see that expand over time in the coming weeks and months, and you'll see that as well. Obviously, a lot of activity on other sites around candidates, causes, and interaction. So the branding and the basic presentation is a core way to use these sites. For those of you who haven't kind of jumped on for your candidate or cause yet, it's actually quite easy to set up a profile, to set up a page, to really begin to get the basic social interactions happening on this service. There are ways to drive that and drive traffic over time. I'll talk a little bit at the end about the social ads that we've launched in the past week, which we think is an innovative new way that will have a special effect on politics. But the basic functionality of these services really allows you to connect with and build the friends list and to disseminate information with an incredible rapidity, and then also to leverage the fact that other people are sharing information and use their social networks to spread the word. So on Facebook, it's the news feed, and the fact that when you join a group, when you become a supporter of a candidate, or you fan a cause, or you add an application like Change.org, for instance, all of that activity gets bubbled through your social network through the news feed. So that branding opportunity is huge, and therefore free. Voter registration is the second of the key ways that you can use these sites. At Facebook, we've partnered with Rock the Vote. There are a couple of folks from Rock the Vote here today. We've worked with them for more than a year around building an innovative voter registration application and thinking about targeting how do you get to people when they change addresses, when they turn 18, when they sort of have some sort of change in their lives to get them, make sure that they register or re-register. That's of critical importance, and we think that over the course of this campaign that will drive sort of hundreds of thousands of new voter registrations, and that's just what we're doing. Every organization can use the voter registration tool that Rock the Vote has built with Working Assets and some other partners. It's a very exciting way to get out there on the web, on Facebook, on MySpace, on all sorts of different sites, on YouTube, on all sorts of different sites to spread the word and get around making voter registration easy. It's always been a great challenge over time. It's a great it's actually gotten to the point where it's simple and should be promoted through all of these social networks. You'll see on sites like Facebook, you'll see as people take those actions, as they register voters, you'll see that promoted through the various means on the site. Fundraising is another way that you can use these technologies in particular, and we've seen Change.org and Project Agape and a number of other players jump into this and begin to drive serious amounts of donations and connections to causes and the direct promotion of fundraising in these instances. So we think that this will be a hugely successful cycle for people raising money online. Obviously, I mean, Joe Trippi is fond of telling the story of how if you just had everybody give $100, you could raise $100 million quite easily. We haven't quite seen that happen yet, but we have seen a great kind of rapidity of donations flowing through the online infrastructure, and perhaps by the end of this campaign, we'll see an immense amount of money raised online. And then there's the classic block and tackle of a field campaign. There's the getting people out to events and driving the ability to connect on a real-time basis, knowing where your candidate is going to be when, and getting people to that event. So we've seen people create quite a number of Facebook events. On college campuses, obviously, was initially our roots, and we saw that as we were more of a college site. Now that 3/4 of our users are out of college, we're seeing more and more people form political events and driving their friends and neighbors to this. In the 2007 campaigns, we saw quite a bit of activity, both the statewide stuff, but I worked with my friend Sid Espinoza on his Palo Alto City Council campaign, of which Facebook was a prominent part, and we were able to, it wasn't primarily the Facebook efforts that drove this, it was all of his other great work, but Sid was the top vote getter in the campaign. We'll serve on the city council starting in December, which we're very excited about. So you've seen this on a variety of levels. Events created, driving traffic around that, and and that classic bit of connection to show up. And then the example you'll see in the paper is Hillary Clinton at the College Democrats annual convention. And then there's the get out the vote effort. Obviously you're kind of building through the campaign. You're setting up your candidate. You're making sure your voters are registered. You're getting people out to events. You're building the excitement. You're sort of doing your classic field campaign. You're raising the money. And then, end of the day, you got to get people out to vote. It's all about that one poll that really matters at the end of the day. And we've seen great success so far in driving people to the polls. In some of the work that we did in the 2006 campaign, we had at the end of the last campaign, targeted advertising come in from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee that helped drive victories in 38 of 41 targeted districts. And in the Connecticut 2nd District, we had a huge voter turnout increase at the University of Connecticut where Facebook flyers had been sort of wall to wall in the days prior to the election, an over 600% voter turnout increase in a race that was settled by 83 votes. So we were very excited to see that type of direct effect, and we think that over time you'll see this in a variety of races. And obviously, we were proud to play a part in helping to drive the largest youth voter turnout increase in a midterm in a generation. So we're hoping for 08 to see a lot more. So basically, you can leverage these social connections through utilities like Facebook to drive politics in a very traditional way. It's the classic elements of a campaign. This isn't some newfangled, highfalutin technology question. It's just a way to use the people infrastructure more efficiently. And that's overall, I think, the number one thing for everyone in politics to realize is that all that's happened with the addition of technology to this mix is that we've made it a lot easier to reach a lot of people a lot more effectively through their friends. So thank you very much, and we look forward to the discussion.
Great. Thanks, Chris. That's fantastic. Next up, and we did do the intro, is going to be Cheryl. Cheryl's going to basically be, one of the things we also want to say here at NPI is we're talking to several different levels of people. There are people who don't really know what social networking is, never been on it really. They've kind of heard it vaguely, or this Facebook thing, or this MySpace thing. And others, in fact, some of the people here are very, very sophisticated in it. So we also often think about two audiences. I don't know, I think you're going to address a little bit of that. Absolutely. As well as some other ideas. And here's the, oops, this one. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, fantastic.
But I think, can you sit back this way, actually?
Oh,
I just was bringing you that.
Sure.
Right here is good.
That's good. All right. Well, thanks, everyone, for coming out. And thank you to the New Politics Institute and to Pete Leiden for inviting me to come all the way out here from San Francisco back to my native town, D.C. So, social networking. How many of you came here because you received an email? Okay, a lot of you. How many people came here because you saw this on Facebook and saw that your friends were coming? Right. Wow. So that's social networking right there. Okay.
It's not done?
Oh, do I need to get closer?
Oh, there
we go.
Yeah, there, just that
Okay.
other one. But take your finger off it once you're done. Yeah.
Great. So what I'm going to talk about very briefly is social networking. What is it? I know this is a very sophisticated crowd, but still, let's take a step back and talk about that. Where is it going? And then what should you do about it? I mean, just at a bottom line level, what do you want to walk away with from today and take back to the office and to your organization?
Is it not?
There you go.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so what is a social network? Social network, defined in the Wikipedia, is a social structure comprised of individuals and/or organizations that are linked together by some kind of interdependency. That can be kinship, it can be shared interests, it can be conflict, it can be trade. And so what we're seeing now, as Chris just talked about, is not something new. Social network is a buzzword right now being tossed around to discuss a paradigm shift in technology and communications. However, social networks are as old as smoke signals, and people using smoke signals to talk to the village next door and communicate some news. So for those of you who are still like, what is a social network? Some of you may remember this story that was in the New York Times a few months ago about obesity and how obesity can actually be contagious. And they actually use social network analysis to determine that if you know 2 to 3 other fat people, that means that you're likely to be also fat. Okay? So that's social network, is that these ideas within your network, how you're living your life, what you're talking about, it might be food a lot of the time, those ideas spread. Wow, did you go to In-N-Out Burger? They have a great hamburger. In and out. Or Five Guys, for those of you here in DC, Five Guys. They've got some pretty good burgers. Is that better? Okay. So what we're seeing, in terms of, how is this evolving? How is our human communications evolving using these new tools? We've gone beyond smoke signals, and we're actually going beyond the informational Web 1.0 websites that were just about, allowing people to access more information, in their own time, providing more information. Now we're in Web 2.0 where each person is an information provider and a nucleus among their network, and your value, your power is defined by the type of information that you personally can provide. And so that's where you see the Wikipedia, that's where you see YouTube, Facebook, and then now we're also starting to move into Web 3.0 where you see virtual worlds where people are defining their communities in whole new ways. Mobile, the semantic web. And what's important to take note here is that we're moving from accessing information to co-creating information together. There we go. Okay, so free hugs. Free hugs, that sounds good. How many of you have heard about this Free Hugs campaign? A few of you, okay, not bad. Free Hugs, this is actually one of the top 20 videos in YouTube. And people tend to think about YouTube as a distribution mechanism, that you go to YouTube to find videos. But what's important about Free Hugs campaign, we've been analyzing this campaign for one of my clients, which is Shinyuan Foundation out of Japan. They are a nonprofit that's devoted to promoting peace. Is that with no money and yet using the social networking power of YouTube, you see there in the red circle, I know it's small, but there are 20 million views so far of this video, and that was driven by the fact that it was favorited about 100,000 times by people. There are 40,000 comments. It's been rated 70,000 times. So it's people, what drove the views was not necessarily a TV show or New York Times. It was people talking to other people. But it goes beyond YouTube. What's interesting about this campaign is that, just using a few simple tools and not a lot of money, this, the creator of this campaign, Juan Man out of Australia, has had an international impact. You see up here, in the Flickr sphere, if you search on Free Hugs, the same campaign comes up with 9,000 photos of people worldwide in places like Peru and Amsterdam, Korea. You go to MySpace and you see Free Hugs campaign. You go to the freehugscampaign.org website and you see the forum that Juan Man has set up to encourage people to talk. There are thousands of comments here. The comments are all about how to promote peace and free hugs worldwide. But email hasn't gone away. It's not that transmission is narrowing to any particular source or that any source is going away. Instead, what we're seeing is a multiplicity of channels. So another way this got promoted was on Digg. And this Free Hugs campaign rose straight up. How many of you visit Digg regularly? A lot of people. Okay, so I'm not going to go into much detail about Digg, since you all know about it.
No, can you explain it? Just because
Sure.
there are people that don't know Digg.
Sure, so here's what Digg is. Digg is a way of ranking news stories, press releases, blog posts, and essentially what's happening here is a co-creation of a newspaper. Instead of going to the Washington Post and looking at what the Washington Post editors have determined are the most important stories of the day, instead, through organic ranking and individuals coming together through social networking, what you find are a co-created priority of news stories. And what we have found in working with our clients is that if you can get enough people to dig your story such that it appears on one of these home pages that Digg has, you're going to get 5 times as many people reading that story. And so Digg can be very powerful. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how other folks are using Digg. So why should you care? Well, journalists care quite a lot about social networking. And there was a recent study that came out that says 100% of journalists say that they're using the internet, and many of them are saying that blogs make their lives easier. They make their jobs easier. And you'll see here at the bottom, 70% of journalists are saying that they read blogs, and 67% are watching webinars and webcasts, right? So that's something to keep in mind as you're creating your campaigns. 92% of these journalists are saying, look, you know, we're placing a priority right now on our online as opposed to our print. And most of those journalists are actually writing for both the print and the online. So, you know, if you're thinking about, you know, oh, we have to have a separate online strategy from our offline strategy, you know, your target audiences are not necessarily thinking in those terms. Instead, they are consuming media across many different platforms. And then here you see that the most important information that you can have are search, this is very powerful, and your press room. So in looking at the media and how they are driving this new social media and social communications, what you find is that, you know, the old gray lady has a new iPod. You know, the New York Times is not just broadcasting in print. They have blogs and live blogs. They have podcasts. They are mobile. They have newsletters. And what you see, again, are this overlapping of multiple channels. On their blogs page, you can actually also sign up for the email. On every page of the New York Times website, they are tracking and telling you, look, this is how many people have emailed this story. This is how many people are blogging. These are the most popularly blogged stories. These are the most popularly searched stories on our website or in this section. So they're paying very close attention to what users are doing. Then on every page of the New York Times, you see they are allowing people to share their stories with their social networks. Okay, so that's what we're focusing on, is helping our clients to take advantage of this phenomenon where you have tools that make it easy to dig. And it's very easy to add these tools to your website. It doesn't cost a lot of money. So one of our clients is actually AT&T. We run their press room. And what you see here, I know it's very faint, but what you can see here is a common press release that we might do for them. This is links that are keyword optimized. What you see are Wikipedia links. You see here that it's easy to share this story on Digg and Delicious. You can pick it up in Technorati, and you can pick up the press room very easily if you're accessing it on your mobile phone. So, and these are all tools. You know, the assumption is that any given journalist or any given consumer will be wanting to use one, two, or more of these tools. Just a very quick word on the larger picture, the big picture here, what's happening. What we're seeing is an enormous growth, and resistance essentially is futile. As you can see, Facebook, you know, is experiencing, you know, in the past year, enormous growth. We're also paying close attention to Tagged, which is a relatively new social network and is experiencing explosive growth. There are 30 million users right now. Also, it's important to remember to be culturally relevant. For some of you who are working in the international arena beyond American politics, you know, we pay a lot of attention here to MySpace and Facebook because that's what's changing our culture. That's what's dominant for us. If you look, though, at in Asia, you've got 88% of people in Friendster. In Latin America, you've got Bebo, and in Europe, in Latin America, you've got Orkut, and in Europe, you've got Bebo. Cyworld. How many of you have heard about Cyworld? A few people, a handful of people. Well, let me tell you something. Cyworld has more videos than YouTube, and it has it is second only to iTunes in the number of songs sold. It is a social networking platform out of South Korea. 1 out of every 4 South Koreans is in Cyworld, and we're predicting that you'll hear more about Cyworld in the future. So just to start to sum up, where is all this going? Well, as you can see, it's about seamless communications across platforms and device. And think about your own life. Think about your own behavior. Maybe on the way to work, you read the newspaper, the physical newspaper, right? But then walking to work, you might check through and scroll through your BlackBerry or your RSS feeds. Maybe you check your Facebook status. Maybe you're Twittering. Maybe once you sit down at your desk, you actually get on email and you send a story that you saw on the way to work. You look it up on the New York Times. Or maybe you put it into Facebook. And we're also seeing increased speed of information. Our CEO, Dave Sine, is a great guy, very down to earth, very smart. He tells a story about how a couple of teenage boys broke into his garage trying to look for some beer. Okay? And he and his daughter, his teenage daughter, about the same age, came down, and scared them off. By the time he had made one phone call and a half, okay, to his network, his social network, his teenage daughter, using her mobile phone, had already not only found out who the kids were, but had received an apology from one of them. Okay? So, I think I really think that is, what we're seeing is it's not that people aren't talking, it's that they're able to talk now, as Chris mentioned, much more quickly. And then, I think that the point that this is, very natural and ubiquitous, that this is a phenomenon that's much like, the telegraph or email, is important to keep in mind. So yes, there's a new way now. There are new tools that you can use to fight breast cancer or, move your mission forward. So what should you do about it? What can you do about it? Well, first off, Google yourself. Many of you probably already do that on a daily basis, right? You know who you are. But then Technorati yourself. Technorati is the Google of the blogs. And then look in YouTube, Facebook, Flickr, Dig. Chances are your organization or your campaign is already there. People are already talking about you. Today, once you leave here, if you're not already incorporating some of these tools into your press room and allowing people to share your stories, if you're not incorporating webcasts or video, go ahead and start doing that, because you know what? The very people you're trying to reach, including bloggers and journalists, are searching your website for that very information. Are they coming away disappointed? Look at what the mainstream media is doing. They are actually leading consumer adoption of Web 2.0, and they are very fluent in these tools. And then, find your supporters online. That's where they are. 90% of Americans of college-educated Americans are online, and something like between 70 and 75% of Americans are online. That's where the people are. You want to talk to them. You want to listen to them. They are looking for leadership from you, but in this new era, you can also follow them. They have creativity, they have input, they have energy to bring to your campaign and ideas that can take the organization forward if you're willing to let them lead. So thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
That's great, Cheryl. Hey, I know there's a line up here. There are some chairs over here if folks want to slip over. I don't know if you can see it. Or actually, there's a few in here, too. Slipping in. What are you saying? Scoot people in? It'd be great if we could, because I know we got a whole lineup there. We're going to have a couple quick conversations here, and then we're going to go. Go ahead for Ben. Now, the next one up is Ben Rattray. Ben is going to basically talk about Change.org and his insights into things. All right, Ben?
Thanks, Pete, and MPI. It's great to be here. Actually, despite the look of the slides, I'm not going to talk just about what we're doing. I want to talk about three things. First is sort of the theory of why social networking is powerful for political organizing as well as nonprofit fundraising, sort of kind of taking a little bit off what Chris said. The second is the practice, what organizations, campaigns are doing now. And third is the future, where we see this going sort of in the next couple of years. So beginning, this is very basic, an extremely oversimplistic model, but I think graphics are sort of important. The current model, especially for nonprofits, right? You've got an organization here in the middle, spamming effectively all its supporters, right? So it's a one-way stream of communication. It's an organization on a regular basis emailing out newsletters. And sort of conspicuously here, the network model was an organization at the center still sending out communications to supporters, but being able to receive information back, personalize that communication, and then empower existing supporters to propagate that message through their own social networks, right? And so if you look at the fundamental transformation that a network model produces, it's those two things. One is new communication, and second is a new model for distribution. And with communication, it's really important. It's, here again, personalizing the relationship between an organization and supporters. So right now, I've got a relationship with Amnesty International. I'm on their email list, but I don't feel a whole lot a part of that community, right? 400,000 other people are also a part of that email list. Right now, I have a very asymmetric relationship with that organization. So on the one hand, what social networks allow is that organization to communicate to me in a much more personal way. And this seems maybe trivial. And the one basic thing is I go onto, let's say, its social network, or I go onto Facebook to its profile. I can actually see and sometimes these are interns, but the people that work for Amnesty communicating with blogging, adding their own photos, their videos. I see the time it was posted. I see the photos sometimes of the people that work for the organization. I can get private messages from those people. They can see the most active supporters in their network and therefore induced to send private emails or messages through Facebook, for example, to those supporters. And that's tremendously powerful. In fact, it's saying your supporters who currently you're just spamming on a one-way medium every week, you can identify them personally, send them a private message, and those people can see the director for internet communications for Amnesty has sent them a note, right? So one, it forges a sense of community and personalization. The second thing is, again, supporter to supporter. It empowers people. I mean, right now, again, it's Amnesty International at the center. It's 400,000 supporters. There's no way for those people to interconnect. And of course, social networking enables that, facilitates that. And the upside for organizations is twofold. One, it builds a sense of solidarity, of community. To the extent that I see my friends also supporting a cause or a campaign, I start to identify myself more with that campaign, especially when I make a public pronouncement supporting it. And I see my friends see me support that campaign. So the second thing is distribution. And this is sort of the virality that Facebook, for example, facilitates. It's effectively allowing nonprofits or campaigns the first time to leverage in a much more efficient way their existing supporters to propagate their message through the social networks. And there's two ways that happens. One is active. Right? Is somebody actually proactively inviting a friend? You ask sort of, how is this different than the tell your friend sort of link that every nonprofit has on its website after an action? The difference is, and sort of the way I like to describe it, is friends don't invite friends to websites. Right? Friends invite friends to communities. And if you look at the growth of things like Facebook or YouTube or everything else, it's all individuals inviting friends. There's no marketing. And Facebook never paid for marketing. MySpace didn't. YouTube didn't. And these are all growing organically, people inviting friends. And the second thing is, of course, passive as well. And Chris talked about this. But the mere fact of conducting an act, of supporting an organization, of a campaign on one of these networks, by virtue of that act, propagates that message, even if you don't want to sometimes. If it goes in the news feed, if I support Barack Obama, all my friends see, right? So the question is, like Chris had mentioned and Pete had mentioned as well, sort of, social networks have been at the core of political organizing, and to some extent, but less so for nonprofits since the beginning of time. The question is, are we just taking these offline strategies and putting them online? And I want to actually say no, it's not exactly just that. The advantage, so until now, the reason why sort of social networks haven't been exclusively used is it's really difficult. It's difficult to get people to go out and knock on the doors of friends, to send your message, to tell their friends about it. And it's really expensive. And what's new right here is scale, right? It's so much easier for you to facilitate that communication. In fact, so much so that it actually is transformative. It's so much easier. And the communication itself, because it's coming through friends, is so much more effective that I think it's starting to crowd out the more expensive and less effective mediums, which are traditional paid media or direct contact, where you buy a list, you spam out a bunch of people, you do direct mail. Right? So although it's merely really taking something offline that's always been successful and bringing it online, it is so much more effective and so much cheaper. And the scale is so much greater that it is transformative, I think. The other thing, I'm going to steal your water. The other thing I wanted to mention is it's not just actually this. There's one other element that I think is overlooked in many quarters. It's not just that the communication stream is different and the distribution. The distribution is different. It's that the nature of the communication and distribution is such that it overcomes traditional psychological barriers to involvement. This is really important. So there's three elements here. So it's not just that you're more likely to receive an email or notification about a certain campaign or a cause. It's that when it comes through a friend, it has much more impact and the power of personal connections to differentiate that cause from anything else. This is very important. One of the problems in getting people engaged in social issues, you have a tremendous number of people that care about, for example, global warming. I've got all my friends care about everybody in San Francisco cares about global warming. There are very few people that do a damn thing about it. And the reason is, well, there's many reasons. One of the reasons is you've got no idea what to do. There are 5,000 environmental conservation organizations across the US. They're all working seemingly, superficially for the same cause. How do you decide, right? And the power of personal connections is that it overcomes that paradox of choice. It immediately says, look, your friends support Greenpeace, they're doing this campaign today, and it immediately validates and gives you a reason to take that specific action. The second thing is collective action and magnified impact. So another sort of barrier to getting people involved is the sense of impotence, the sense that you can't possibly have an impact on a mega cause like global warming, that if I give $25 to CARE, it's a part of a budget of $600 million. How can it possibly be impactful? It's negligible, and therefore undercuts the likelihood of action. And so in a social network, not only do you receive this communication more effectively, but when you do so, you notice, like for Barack Obama, when there was sort of the viral campaign about a year ago and 300,000 people joined, you see that you're a part of a community much greater than yourself. And so you're part of something, basically a movement. And this is giving people a sense that they're a part of something that, if joined, can magnify their impact dramatically. The final thing is social recognition and reinforcement. This is really important. The sort of element of showing your friends what you're doing. So instead of doing an isolated act, I go by myself in my home, I write a check to Barack Obama. As much as we like to think people are entirely altruistic, there's no doubt, nonprofit fundraisers and political fundraisers have done this since the beginning of time, is give recognition to major donors. It's very difficult to give recognition to small donors. It's just inefficient. You don't have the money to bring them to a banquet. You can't call them rangers or pioneers. But the most important segment of people who others care about, they're their friends. And so what you effectively do is you show, you can show people and give recognition to donors and other activists in your network. So I want to talk about sort of the practice of social networking right now, what nonprofits and political campaigns are doing, and to what effect. But I think it's important before doing so is to say, well, how are we going to assess effectiveness? What are the goals of organizations and campaigns getting involved in social networking? Traditionally, you care about sort of activism, advocacy. You care about three things. We want to get more people giving more money and taking more action. And action in this case could either be emailing Congress, going to a volunteer event, or voting, right? I think social networks can increase all of these. But I want to mention one thing. The money thing is interesting. To the extent that social networking can enable more people to take greater action, especially when we're talking about voting patterns, more money is less and less relevant. And so though I think it's possible, what I'll say in a second is, actually, I'm not so certain that social networks will be able to raise as much money as we initially thought. So we still think it's possible, but it may not be as relevant, because money is a conduit, is a vehicle, is a facilitator for getting action. And to the extent that you can go on Facebook, I think, as a sort of a side note, I think one of the most transformative things, my prediction is, the most transformative thing in politics in the next year and a half will be voter registration on Facebook. Voter registration on Facebook. And the reason is, I go on, I actually haven't seen the app yet, but I go on, right? And I can see immediately all my friends that have or have not registered to vote. I can see what party they are. I'll notified if they're the same party, right? I'll be notified if they're in the same district. And I can immediately invite all those people with a single click to go register. And if they're not registered, then I can send them another note, and they may receive another note from another friend. And then on election day, I can go and say, well, look, who lives in my precinct, who's also a Dem, for example, and who's going to go to the poll at what time? And you can recruit all those people. I think it's going to be a dramatic impact, and it's got nothing to do with more money. So I think more money can be raised, but it's not necessarily as important as one might think. So the present, how organizations are currently using social networks. First off, look, tremendous interest overall. Tremendous interest overall. That's obvious to a lot of people, the interest in campaigns. But all the presidentials are all over social networking, right? It's also happening in the nonprofit sector and the advocacy sector, increasingly. The way it's happening, we see it on a regular basis. What organizations tend to do is they're hiring an online media or on a communications manager to facilitate this, right? And they're focused primarily on MySpace and Facebook. YouTube as well, not exactly a social network, still very powerful, but really focusing on MySpace and Facebook. I think that's a good thing. Obviously we run a niche play, which will describe sort of the positioning and why I think we're relevant. But focused on MySpace and Facebook. I would say thus far a qualified success. So walking through what nonprofits are doing especially, nonprofits will go on Facebook, they'll create a group, they'll create a cause, They may create a page, and they'll try to recruit members. Overall, it's more, people are treating this as an appendage to their normal strategy. So if you look at organizations, the way they're working is they still have their normal email list of 400,000 people that they're spamming on a regular basis. And then they have this sort of tacked on appendage of a social networking strategy run by an intern that says, well, we're going to do this as a sideshow, right? Which is okay, it's understandable, but it's still a sideshow. It's not deeply integrated into their normal stream of communication. And so when I say qualified success, this is really important to know, and as Chris knows, maybe he knows now, I'm a huge fan of Facebook, less so of MySpace, but it still can be very effective. But I really think that it's qualified success. And people, it's important as an organization or campaign not to look at the outliers and presume they're representative of what you can achieve, right? And so you see things like Barack Obama's group getting 300,000 people. You see certain, Stephen Colbert, nobody has that sort of compelling message, gets 1.5 million. Very powerful, but very unrepresentative. Now, it's not that you couldn't accrue several thousand members, but don't expect that you go on there and get some mass flood of virality immediately. And as far as sort of why this is, one, it's a new medium. I think there's potential for that to happen, but it's still a new medium. Second is, like I mentioned, unrealistic expectations. And third is probably the biggest thing that plagues organizations that we see is this field of dreams mentality. That, wow, well, Barack Obama had 3,000. If we can just get 1% of that. Or, Facebook's got 52 million users now. MySpace, some sort of amount more than that. If we just get on there and get like 1% or 0.01%, sort of reminds me of people like 10 years ago in the beginning of the dawn of the web. It's like 500 million people on the web. We just need a website and people will come. And it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And so there's definitely more capacity for distribution and virality, but it doesn't just happen. You've got to aggressively fight. And there are two things that are important to that. One is messaging, which John, sort of an expert at, is going to talk about. And two is recruiting, is getting bare bones. Going down. People on MySpace, the most common way of building a community on MySpace, getting an intern to go on and friend 70 people a day. Sort of restriction, I don't know if it's changed, but 70 people you can recruit. You get active in recruiting people. So the future. So the future, on the one hand, I think MySpace and Facebook are going to be more and more important. The future, though, is I think nonprofits are really going to bake social networking into their mainstream of communication. I go back to the irony of a nonprofit having, let's say, a list, let's say 100,000 supporters, right? That is the biggest potential social network because they already care about you. They're already on your list, right? To tap into that, to build a sense of community, to forge solidarity, and then to empower them to spread your message is the most promising thing. It's also interesting to go onto Facebook and MySpace and accrue new supporters and market. But I think one can't ignore that deep integration. And you see across multiple sectors the commoditization of social networking being integrated into everything. And so what we're doing, sort of what organizations want, if you look at what they need to really be effective, I think that a lot of organizations are looking for branding. They're looking for custom features, looking to leverage their existing content of their websites. They're looking to capture data. They're looking to integrate it with their CRM, if it's Convio, Conterra, Democracy in Action. And I'll get to the last one in a second. And so you see this with a number of organizations looking to create their own social networks because they want these sorts of things. I think it's very dangerous in many ways. It's very difficult to do. But I understand the interest. I understand the interest for these things, which to a large extent you can't achieve through a MySpace or Facebook, though important as they are. And so what we're doing, and this is sort of an announcement we're going to make tomorrow, is we are enabling nonprofits, rather than having to build their own custom social network, is give them all the features and functionality and branding they want while being able to plug into a broader network of social change, right? And so what we're doing is basically turning nonprofits' websites into effective social networks. And so I'll just run through a couple of the organizations. We're launching with about 50 of them. But this is our site, and more or less what we've done is we've turned these websites into social networks. And so you can see Could Pink, you can see the overall network, NARAL Pro-Choice, you can see Basic Connect to all the supporters around the country. You can take action. Actually, we have an API with Democracy in Action. We're going to do so with all basically the major vendors, it looks like, where people from American Way or whatever organization, they post actions. Rather than having it on their website, where you take action and that's the extent of the experience, you can actually see the bottom, 46 emails sent or whatnot. You can see the people that have sent it. You can see what they've written. You can rank each other's letters. You can see who's written letters in your district. So very powerful. And then invite people to join. You do have fundraising projects and social fundraising communities. You can direct money in specific ways. You have a blog that you can stream from your blog overall or personally communicate with your supporters. You have, of course, video sharing. You just pull it in from YouTube, or others in your network can actually post their own videos. And of course, what we do here is, our site, just very briefly, it's both communities around nonprofits, soon-to-be campaigns, and issues as well. And so you're connected as an organization to all the different issues that you care about. So not only do you have the capacity and the tool set to build your own community that's branded, within which you capture data and control on change.org, but also can pull from a broader community of people who join the network. And that's it.
Man. Fantastic. 3 great speakers, and to cap it off, we've got another one, and he's going to wrap up, clean up here, and then we're going to open it up to folks. But John Hlinko and Grassroots Enterprises, and a man who knows how to communicate.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let's have a round of applause. For me. No, for all the speakers, for this panel, and frankly for the cake, which was really phenomenal. How is everyone? Oh, good, we're there. Okay, how am I doing here? Are we getting feedback back there? Oh, there we go, that's perfect. How's everybody feeling today? Good. Yay, feeling social? Feeling networked? I'm going to talk about, well, you've heard a lot of great discussion on the 40,000-foot level, the more tactical level, the technology. And what I want to talk about is the content that goes into it and what we call the grassroots multipliers. That is literally the people who are multiplying a message online. Let me just jump into this. Oh, this is me, by the way. That's me. So if anybody needs to email me afterwards or call, just feel free. Those will all work. But okay, how many people have seen Spinal Tap? Excellent, good. The rest of you, for the love of God, this is your heritage. Go rent it this weekend or download it or something. But in the movie, for those who haven't seen it, those people who've been under a rock the last couple of decades, the whole concept here is that this band has speakers that go to 11. And they're really, really excited about it because the speakers go to 11. And isn't that great? Because clearly if it goes to 11, they will have more success. But what matters most is not so much the speakers, but the music that goes into it. And in this case, the music, love the movie, but look, the music was not great. So the point is your speakers may go to 11, your technology may go to 11, but ultimately it's what you're putting into it that's going to matter. Facebook goes to 12. And I'll say that with a number of the social networking platforms out there, but I'm particularly jazzed about Facebook right now, and I, for one, welcome our new Facebook overlords, because I tell you, we've been so excited about using Facebook the last few months and all the different things that it enables, and I really do think that we've had a fundamental paradigm shift here, or a paradigm enhancement, if you will, where the speaker really does go to 12 at this point, using this type of technology. Nevertheless, what still matters is the content that goes into it. If the music you're playing doesn't sound good, it's not going to be heard and it's not going to be spread. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Content is, in fact, still king. Well, let's step back for a sec and say, well, what kind of content is it that gets spread, that gets people excited, that gets people jazzed? I just want to talk about a few different elements that we have found, both in the web and now increasingly in social media, to be impactful and to be most buzzworthy. Topical and in the news, of course. That's a no-brainer. If something is in the news, you have a teachable moment, people care about it, clearly that's the kind of stuff that's going to, all else being equal, spread more. Emotionally impactful. One of the things we always advise our clients, or just friends, is don't so much think about what's going to hit people in the head and get them engaged and get them thinking. That's all really good. You got to hit them in the gut, though. Hit them in the heart. Get them laughing. Get them angry. That's what charges them. That's what gets their attention. And I talk about the 117 emails. Oh, good. Laser opportunity. See, 117. Anyway, 117 emails. What do we mean by that? Well, assume that whoever is receiving your message has 117 emails in their inbox or 117 items in their feed. Use whatever proxy you want. The point is, if yours is number 118, is it really going to stand out? And if it isn't, go back and rewrite. Take it to a 10, take it to an 11, and keep on doing it. It never ceases to amaze me the amount of people who will really, really obsess over giving a speech to 100 people and work on it for weeks, and yet if they're delivering a message to 100,000, they'll just kind of cut and paste a press release or do something like that. The opportunity is there. If you give people the right message, they're going to spread it. A couple of other quick things. Cognitive dissonance, I'll show you a couple of examples of this, but I'm really a big fan of things that make people go, wait a minute, what? And make them think, wait a minute, did I hear that right? Whether it's a pun, whether it's something that appears just wrong, whether it's something that takes your opponent's argument to an illogical extreme, but something that stands out and just kind of gets inside their head and forces them to pay attention. That's really critical. Do we have any Beavis and Butthead fans out there? All right, excellent. This is good to see. I'm a big fan of Beavis and Butthead, and these last 2 points are really kind of tied together. Beavis and Butthead and the Joy Sponges. You know, Beavis and Butthead is pretty darn funny, and I love it, and I still quote it all the time. You know, or think about Office Space. Think about any number of things that are just these wonderful things that are just so juvenile. But ultimately, human beings are just well-dressed monkeys. I mean, let's face it. And you know, a lot of the stuff that really hits us at a gut level and is very funny and engaging and spreadable, it really, really works. And the reason I mention that is because you're going to encounter these people as you do your strategy, the joy sponges. These are the people who, when there is joy, when there is happiness, when there is mirth to be had, they just kind of suck it up. And you know, the whole room, there's just this miasma of like, you know, just unmellowness and just misery that just flows out. Typically, the way this will come out is these are the folks who, if you're in a room and you've come up with a really clever idea that's kind of edgy, they're the ones who say, well, you know, somebody might be offended by that. We might get some emails. Well, it's very important that you take those people outside and beat them to death as quickly as possible, because the reality is, look, you know, obviously you're not going to go to an extreme to be offensive or do something stupid. But the point is, if you're in one of those situations where 9 out of 10 people in the room laugh, and the other person is not concerned themselves, but worried about, ooh, those others who might get disturbed, who cares? You know what? If you don't offend at least one person a day, you're not really trying hard enough. So, you know, really try and push the envelope, because that's what's going to get noticed. Let's talk about a few examples. Is Mike Panetta in the room? Where's Mike Panetta? Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Panetta. Okay, Panetta happens to be a colleague of mine. He's also a creative genius, in spite of me bringing, you know, down the level there. Here's why Mike's a creative genius. Okay, are people familiar with the concept of democracy? Okay, how many folks here live in Washington, D.C.? Okay, those of you here will know this. Other folks may or may not. In Washington, D.C., we don't get to vote for members of Congress because we don't have them. We don't have elected senators or representatives. Kind of weird, a cute little constitutional quirk that's been disenfranchising people for 200+ years. But the reality is, in D.C., a lot of folks have just become resigned to it. It is what it is, and they don't really pay much attention. And around the country, a lot of people are like, thank God, I don't want those folks voting, they're nuts. So Panetta came up with what I thought was just a brilliant idea. And here's an example of taking arguably, I don't want to say a boring issue, it's incredibly important, but an issue that's been kind of played out and giving it a whole new spin. So Panetta's idea was, wait a minute, hold on now. We don't have the right, and this was hatched over beer, which is, you know, I recommend that, or wine. And in this case, Panetta came to the realization that we didn't have elected members of Congress. We had delegates, as did Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, and yet they had Olympic teams. So if they had an Olympic team, because they were sort of this quasi-part of the United States, why not us? So he came up with the idea of the Washington, D.C., or I'm sorry, the District of Columbia Olympic Committee, the first team being the curling team for the Winter Olympics. Is everybody familiar with curling? You take this rock and you hurl it down the ice and people sweep and other people stare and go, what the hell are those guys doing? That's the sport. It's actually a wonderful sport. If we have any Canadians in the house, you may know this, or Scandinavians. It's a fine, fine sport, a lot of fun, but it's just bizarrely compelling. No one knows what's going on. But what is beautiful about this is we get a tremendous amount of attention because lots of people, lots of blogs, and the reason I bring up this case study in the next few is they all got way more buzz than the budget would have indicated would have been expected. In this case, the blogs jumped all over it. We had some great provocative blog ads, very small expenditure, but the message spread like wildfire. It was only around for a couple of weeks, but we ended up getting, you know, great coverage in the media, yada, yada, yada. And I think most importantly, it actually set the stage for Mike to run for shadow representative from Washington, D.C., which is an elected position to represent D.C. in Congress and to fight for democracy. And so we have right now shadow representative Michael Panetta, who won that race. So Yes. God bless that man. All right, the next one, I think. There we go. For those who say, yeah, well, but there are some issues that you really can't have fun with or can't, yeah, you know what? Those are also people you need to just kind of fire or just stop associating with. One of our clients we work with is the National Breast Cancer Coalition, just an incredible organization doing work on the breast cancer front. And one of the challenges they had is that they wanted to rally their members in a way that was kind of new and novel and unique and interesting, because let's face it, it's a tough issue. And they wanted to do it in a humorous way. We're like, oh, Christ, how do we do that? Well, there's a group out there that some folks may be familiar with. It's called the Abortion Breast Cancer Coalition, and they are claiming that there's a link between abortion and breast cancer. Well, there's just this one problem that science, that's it, science, there's actually no evidence whatsoever. Well, not surprisingly, this frustrated the heck out of the organization and its members. So we came up with them with the concept of the Golden Boob Award. We were actually going to leverage our opponents and give them an award for being the biggest boobs in the field of breast cancer. That is, using it for political or financial gain. Not surprisingly, they went ballistic. And they started emailing, and we had a vote online. It was really fun. And they didn't accept the award. But this is, the boobie is modeled after the Oscar. But this is one of the things that it got some real nice viral spreading, but what was really gratifying is that the membership loved it. They were like, good, we're fighting back and we're fighting hard. This is funny, this is great, I enjoy it. I'm a breast cancer survivor, but I'm going to fight back, and this is the way to do it. So just to go quickly through some other ones, James Dobson. How many people are familiar with James Dobson? Okay, well, there's a wonderful movie coming out. It's called Park, and it's a great little independent film, and it's got a very strong gay and lesbian theme that runs through it, very positive, just wonderful. And by wonderful luck, the name of their publicist, no relation, is James Dobson. So we've been posting ads all over the place. You know, James Dobson says, wow, Billy Baldwin's got a great ass. Or naked people, lesbians, this is wonderful. Or now I support gay marriage. Like anywhere we could put it, we're just hoping for that lawsuit. But the guy's name is James Dobson. This is one shameless promotion for my own thing, but I want to encourage people to really think out of the box. This is a dating site that I started for Democratic activists. It's called Act for Love. The slogan is Take Action, Get Action. The reason I say this is we've gotten, with pretty much no advertising or very little, we've gotten tremendous viral spreading, and we use it to highlight activist causes. And if people have good causes, I welcome you to shoot me an email. I'm happy to feature them.
Viral spreading online or
yes, maybe not viral. Yes, we advocate safe viral spreading. But I'm going to talk just a little bit about grassroots multipliers. Who are the multipliers? Okay, your content is good, content is king, but there is a subgroup of people who are particularly apt to spread a message. These are the people who, actually one way to think about this is, how many people here have ever sent an email? Okay, how many people have more than 1,000 email addresses in your book? Okay, I mean, clearly we know we all have the potential to send out a message, but in certain contexts, these are the people who are actually multiplying a message. And I should mention that they really will change on context. You know, one of my friends is a published economist. He's brilliant. If he writes me about tax incidence theory, I'll listen to it. My other friend's a professional stand-up comic. If he sends me a joke, I'll read it. But if you flip those two, suddenly they're no longer the multipliers or the mavens. Just to give a couple of quick examples of how we've typically measured this, one fairly clear way to do it is to scan your database and see, well, who's actually in these social media communities. People who are on places like Facebook, by their nature, are far more likely to be multipliers because the actions they're taking are showing up in their friends' news feeds, and they have expressed a willingness to be public about their preferences and their actions. But we also look at, I'll give you one example. Let's say two people, let's say you send an email to Chris and I spread it to 50 friends, he spreads it to 50 friends. 49 of his friends read it, click through and take action. 49 of my friends delete it. We know that we're both spreading the message, but only one of us is being listened to. Hence the two sort of, yeah, there you go. I'm going to go quickly through the rest because I know we're short on time. Oh dear, we're really short on time. Wow, excellent. Okay.
Just finish what you need to do.
Okay, it'll be very quick, and it'll be excellent. If I can leave you with just one message, pitch them like reporters. And this is something that I really encourage people to think about. Change your paradigm. It's very tempting to either email your supporters and think of them as email recipients, or think of them in these communities as recipients of information. But if you pitch a reporter, you don't say, hey, here's a bunch of information, go print it. No, you try and get them excited. You try and get them emotionally engaged. You try and convince them this is the most exciting thing in the world, and it is worthy of spreading to their readers. Think about your supporters in the same way. Give them the content that is worthy of being spread. Very quick, just a couple more slides here. Getting very tactical, understand the specific viral channels. I've used the Facebook as an example. Really tactically get in here and say, what is the kind of stuff that shows up in the feeds? Are pictures more noticeable? Or, really get tactical, because part of what you're trying to do here is not convince your multipliers to spread a message for you, but to make it easy for the ones who already want to spread it to do that. What that means is really figuring out what actions can I have them take that are going to that are really going to be amplified at a 12 level. So really look through the feed, look through all of this and figure out what's going to show up. And take advantage of technology. Obviously, Chris alluded to some of the stuff that's being done on Facebook. I'm sure you've all heard about the Facebook applications. The advertising alone, I just think is phenomenal. This is brand new, and I've been playing around with it like crazy. But if you haven't checked out the applications, I really encourage you to look through it. Think creatively about what you can do that's going to work in that context. There's incredible stuff to be done there already. This is something actually we're releasing. Poke Your Member is something we're going to be working. Yeah, there we go. There's the Beavis and Butthead fan. If anybody wants to see this will be out very soon, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but feel free to email me if you want to get a preview. But the basic idea here is to allow for more seamless activism within the Facebook community, in a safe community, but in a way that syncs with your back-end database. So that's really us in a nutshell, or me in a nutshell, and this is me, and here's my information, and I'll be here, and but feel free to email me afterwards as well. Thank you. Thank you.
All for the panelists, fantastic. Really, as these go, they're terrific quality here. But we also got a great audience here, so we do want to hear from feedback. People basically want to raise questions, also want to maybe make statements, want to kind of think of it as a more of a conversation here. But before we kind of run, before we jump into that, we're going to have a microphone. There is a wireless mic, right? So wait for that, because we are getting it all on video, and it all is going to be on the web. And people do use this and come back to it consistently, so we do want to get it all on there. But before we kind of start, as we jump in there, Chris, do you want to just say a few words about the applications and the advertising?
Sure.
Because you really didn't make those announcements.
No,
I think it's good.
That's right. I wanted to get us focused in on the, this is normal politics just on steroids in terms of its connection levels. But I will say a couple of words about applications which enable you to essentially write your own way to plug into the Facebook social graph and extend the functionality of the social sharing that goes on in Facebook, and that allows you to get some access to the news feed and users' mini feeds based on actions that you impel them to take. And Change.org has done a phenomenal job of that, and quite a number of different organizations have built their own applications to essentially extend the functionality of the Facebook platform. We do see ourselves as a technology platform provider, and we didn't think that we could come up with all the creative ways to use this great model of the social graph that we were building. So we wanted to allow users to have the power to opt in to different applications, and we wanted application developers to come up with their own creative ideas and bring them to Facebook users. So we've seen phenomenal growth in that. Over 8,000 applications have been created. We're looking at new ways to bubble them up effectively. The most effective way is through your own personal social graph, and as you add things and find them useful, you are effectively telling them through the news feed about them, but your friends about them rather. So that's one thing that is a major sort of change in Facebook over the last year. Another is one that we launched this past week, and I saw that John's mini feed indicated that was done very recently because he had become a fan of the New York Times, and and sort of had started to use some of the new expressions that we're allowing. That was launched as part of the new Facebook ad infrastructure. We've allowed people to create their own pages and people to affiliate with them by becoming fans of those organizations or of those of those brands. It's being used in an advertising context as well. And what's going to be generated over time are advertisements based on social action. So as people become fans of organizations and causes and different activities, you'll be able to target ads essentially to promote more aggressively to certain users that their friends took various actions that you may want as an advertiser their friends to take. It's going to be done in a very Facebook fashion in that it's not intrusive, it's not interruptive, it's not going to be flashing in everyone's face. It's going to be part of their news feed and clearly labeled as sponsored, but it will be that someone's friend took a particular action that you wanted to promote. And then it will also appear in the left-hand ad space on Facebook. So it's a new way to effectively drive to groups and to other activity that you may want people to take. So we think that's going to be an exciting new innovation. We've seen a lot of experimentation with it over the past week that it's been out, and that's going to be quite exceptional. The one other thing that we did launch was the ability to effectively broadcast back from third-party sites to users on Facebook. This is clearly in an experimental phase right now. We launched with Blockbuster and Overstock and a number of other sort of business-oriented players, but eventually we think that it could be used for organizations too, to reach back and distribute within the newsfeed and mini feed of various users that they were taking actions on another third-party site. So there's this new infrastructure that's out there as well that we're very excited about, and that we encourage people to use.
Fantastic. How about from the audience? Questions of people want to ask things? And if people do have to slip out, we appreciate that it's a busy week.
Thank you.
You're in the back. Oh, sorry. No, you just got it. Oh, go ahead. No,
okay.
In the front.
Can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks. My name's Lorelei Kelly. I build national security platforms for candidates, for women candidates. I fear I'm going to be a joy sponge, so please don't kill me until I'm finished. Cool. The question I have is regarding progressive philosophy, because a lot of what's happening right now in this sort of electronic revolution is very tactical. And one of the things that the progressive movement risks right now is falling back into some comfortable patterns of identity politics, or sort of flakiness, or where tactics compromise long-term strategy, including progressive philosophy. I'll just give you an example of this and what I work on. Something like the Petraeus ad that was out 5 weeks ago, and the need for progressives to get good on national security and really get into the weeds and get involved in some of the wonky, weeny, not so sexy issues. And I'm wondering, sort of, with all that you're doing, what do you see that controls for that? Is that just a political leadership issue or problem that we have in terms of progressive philosophy? Because I'm not completely convinced that, although this is a huge democratic or democracy boost, that it, in the end of the day, really might improve our democracy.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
You're still mic.
Oh, I can use my mic. Oh, I don't need that. I'm already mic'd up. I think that there's a huge potential for democracy. Sure, there are going to be some bumps along the road, but an example that was actually seen in a few of the big blogs this week is the example of fundraising for GINA 6. Most of you are familiar with the GINA 6, right? And the difference between the success of the NAACP, long-standing, historic progressive organization, and an upstart organization that was founded just after the Katrina hurricane, which is Color of Change. So both organizations took very different tactics in terms of their sort of organizing and fundraising. At the end of the day, the NAACP raised $20,000. They have dispersed 0% of that money to families and lawyers, even though they have 500,000 members on which they could have tapped on in perhaps a more effective way. Color of Change, a much smaller organization, very scrappy, use social networking tools. They have grown to 400,000 members, which is 80% of this NAACP. They have raised over $200,000 for GINA 6. They have dispersed 100% of that to the families and the lawyers. So, you know, I think that the power of social networks to, you know, do exactly what you say, which is to bring progressive philosophy to life, is real.
If I can add, just, yeah, sure, just a follow. I would definitely urge people to look at Color of Change, because their actions, the content is terrific. If you want a really good example of well-written actions that don't just sound like cut and paste crap, I mean, they're really good, they're well-written, they're provocative, so check it out. But you know, I think one of the ways this is really helping progressive philosophy is, frankly, by well, number one, giving the opportunity for, you know, good thought and good philosophy to percolate up to the top very, very quickly. In other words, making it easier for refinements of the philosophy to spread and to catch fire if they deserve to, but also, frankly, for putting pressure on the leaders who often ignore that philosophy, regardless of how good it is. I mean, you know, not to get off on a rant about our current leadership, but no, they're fine folks, but let's face it, I mean, there's certain areas where, you know, I forget which member it was that said years ago, you know, when I feel the fire, I see the light. And, you know, I think there's a lot of grass fire happening right now, and that's a good thing.
Another questions in the way back? Okay, you have it. Good.
Possession is everything, and I have the microphone, so I guess I get to ask the question. I spend most of my time in the commercial world, and I actually have a commercial Facebook group up there. And because you're the privacy officer, I think you're the right person to ask this question. I think there are a lot of people that are very hesitant in the commercial world to reveal what their politics are, because it can have some real negative implications. And I understand that Facebook is working on some increased privacy so that I can show one aspect of my personality to one group and another to others. I think that's very important. I think the sociological implications there are very great, and I'd be interested if you could comment on what you're doing in that area.
Yeah, so we actually have a variety of tools right now. What we haven't done is made them easy enough to use, you know, on an everyday basis. And it's been too binary as to, are you friends or not? Are you members of a network or not? And so we're working on simplifying that. And we'll have different sort of levels of friendship as well that we've announced that we'll be rolling that out in the near future. And so there are a variety of granular elements in profile that you can show to certain people and not other people, but it's gotten, if it gets too granular, it can get confusing, and so we're trying to simplify that right now. So we want to empower users to make their own choices about that. And we want to do it in an effective and easy fashion. So I think you'll see a bunch of improvements in the very near future on that.
Can we move? Oh, okay. Then can we move the mic over this way too? Okay.
I'm in the media. Is this on? I'm in the media, and we collect email addresses when people go to our website. I've been told recently, and so do a lot, obviously a lot of groups, but that people aren't responding to e-blasts anymore because they're getting too repetitive. There are too many of them. They're like spam. And you haven't addressed when or if this is going to happen in the friend context, because I actually have some friends who monitor a lot, who send me emails, you know, 20 a day, different opposing viewpoints in the media and such. And I just wonder at what point you lose a lot of friends by contacting them too often and about too many causes, if there's any way to control that and what the reaction might be.
Can I jump in on this one? Or?
Sure, jump in.
I think honestly, like with starting with the first part of it, the emails, I think the reason that so many emails don't get read is that like the suck level is just so high. I mean, it is just, it never ceases to amaze me how like you have these national organizations and presidential campaigns that are sending out like the same cut and paste, blah, 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 outrage, blah, 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 must help, blah, 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 give me money, blah, 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 outrage, blah, 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 money. It's like the same just crap again and again and again. So I think a lot of it is, frequency matters. I mean, you can't be, you know, bombarding people over and over again, but the reality is, if you send somebody one irrelevant email a month that kind of sucks, they're going to get turned off. But if you send them, you know, incredibly good, precise, targeted, compelling emails once a day, they'll be psyched to get it. So, and I think the same could be said in the social media space as well. But honestly, not to be Johnny One-Note, but I really do think it goes back to content.
One of the things, let me jump in quickly. One of the things you'll see in the paper that we're releasing today is a recommendation around figure out how to respect people's contact level comfort. And we've tried to build a bunch of tools around that, and even as we've launched the pages that you can fan, those updates go into a different tab in your inbox, in your Facebook inbox. We think that sort of segmentation and the real world social connections become a lot more important in the Facebook messaging context. And one reason that Facebook has continued to take off the way that it does and the usage levels are so high is that people are using it to communicate more than they're using their free email account because it's been so overrun by spam.
Just a point as well, and I sort of, I like to criticize the way in which organizations spam email, but I think if you sort of look at the transformation of communication between first direct mail, and then the idea was, well, email is revolutionary, and now we're talking about social networking. As important and more effective, I think, that sort of communication via friends and social networks and Facebook, where you're excited to get mail because it's always your friends, it's true as that is, email still matters. I mean, direct mail still matters. And so, if you look at certain organizations, I know MoveOn, a lot of, if you sort of, talk today, they don't use social networking in the same sort of way in peer-to-peer connections. They're still really effective. And so it's all about copy, I think. I mean, MoveOn sends like 3 emails a week. I know Brave New Films sends out 3 emails a week. If you're interested, if it's good content, it really goes back to John, and what you're saying is, I think the content really matters. So email's not going away, and I think it still can be effective.
If I could add just one last thing quickly, I promise. There are a lot of phenomenal tools out there for personalization and customization of the messages. So regardless of how you're delivering it, really look and say, is there a way that I can customize this message based on their prior behavior, both actively provided information and passively provided? I mean, I won't go too into detail on that, but you can personalize and customize online to a degree that simply is impossible in the offline world. So take advantage of it.
Back here, there's
a lot of notifications that we get from email, from political organizations, or even from Facebook, where they say, "Hey, there's an email in your box." Why hasn't anybody thought of emails that expire? Meaning, like after 30 days, we don't want these notifications anymore, or something like that. You think it's a good idea? Say there's a campaign for the last presidential election, I got an email. It might still be in my inbox because there's so many mail companies offering unlimited storage space. But I don't want that. I'm never going to probably look at it in my life.
I mean, I think the common use case is people very rarely page beyond the last couple of days in their email, especially for free email accounts. So I think it's effectively by default, absent to you.
Right, and what's interesting to me about Facebook, which I love, by the way, and please do Facebook friend me if you'd like after this, we can stay in touch. Facebook is, in some ways, it's passive. You don't necessarily receive, I do receive messages on my mobile phone and on Facebook, but also I observe other people's behavior. People just let me know what they're doing, what they've done today, what cause they've joined, who they've recruited. And depending on my interest, I'll say, oh, I want to jump on that too. Oh, they downloaded that app. 3 of my friends or 18 of my friends went to this great MPI event. Maybe I should go too.
Okay, we'll take a few more here.
Yeah, Chris, I was wondering, what is Facebook's privacy doomsday scenario? Not to get too dark here, but what keeps you up at night in that regard?
I mean, it's, we've actually, I mean, from the get-go, I mean, we've been protective of user privacy, and so that's, we've tried to avoid there being a doomsday scenario, and we've built quite a number of firewalls against it, which continue to be effective to this day. So, I mean, one of the reasons that we've succeeded so well is that we're not reselling user data. That was one of the key strategic decisions that we made early on, not to become effectively a list broker. But we did want to allow people to, with user permission and control, hook in to that infrastructure, and we think that the way that we've done that so far has worked out very well.
We just want, here's a, okay, we'll do that and then we'll come up here.
I had a question about, taking our normal 400,000 person email lists and getting them onto things like Facebook and MySpace, and if there's been success or strategies that groups have used to get their normal email list that we spam once a week or twice a week and move them into this new social networking phase.
Good question.
So, you know, a comment there is a couple things. So first off, a lot of organizations now are placing badges on their website that I just have it's a simple link. I mean, presidential candidates started with this, where you see sort of the link to YouTube or Facebook or MySpace. That's a common way. The reason organizations haven't sent emails out to a 400,000 person list and says join MySpace, it would be very odd. So two things. One is most people, although there's a tremendous number of people on Facebook and MySpace, and it's difficult because in your social milieu, people that are involved in technology and politics, technology in the nonprofit sector, feel like everybody's on these sites. I mean, my friends actually, and I'm 27 and I went to Stanford, and you'd think they're all on this site. They're not quite yet, and they will be, I think, soon. But if you look at most nonprofits we're talking to, only about 5 to 20% of existing donors are on these sites. That's really important to recognize. So there's not a tremendous amount of money being raised yet on these sites. So I think, on the one hand, allowing people to know you're on those sites, but it's an odd use case to say to a 40-year-old supporter, go join MySpace just so you can add my profile to your profile, because what's the use case? Are they going to go back and hang out with your network on MySpace or even on Facebook? Not common. So what we're doing, and this is the reason we've built what we've built, is saying, look, for those people, those donors, and our users tend to be, the average age is 34, it says, for a lot of those, and for us it's a lot of women between the ages of 25 and 55, say, they're huge donors. How do they connect? You want to have them create sort of a fundraising community. How does that happen? And how do we capture the data and do, I mean, we're very sensitive to what organizations traditionally have wanted. So I wouldn't recommend sending out to 400,000 people. For the people that are on those sites, allow them to do it through badges on your website. If you want to build your own social network, that's what we're trying to do, is allow people to serve a lot of broader, older population for specific targeted purposes, fundraising, advocacy, connections.
Any other comment on that? I told her she could go next. And we do understand if people have to slip out, that's great, but it's also great, we've got great interest, so we'll take some more questions for a little bit here.
Okay, I have a number of different points that I have questions on. I must admit that, coming up in sort of a new cultural generation, I have to admit that this cyber world is actually quite scary to me, especially looking at these killings that have just gone on, that were actually, you had relations among these killers over Facebook and MySpace. You have Facebook groups which are called things like, sympathy for Columbine or something like that, where there are actual student groups that are getting together to support each other in their hatred against humanity and their feeling that human beings are a virus on the earth. And so I have a question as to, one, where does this come from? I'd say that it has to do something with living in virtual reality, where people, instead of going out and studying science and interacting with each other, are interacting with each other about their opinions on MySpace, about their favorite advertisement, about their favorite new video on YouTube. Well, do people have something better to do with their time, than sit on the internet all day? I must remind people that we do have a financial collapse going on. If you're worried about winning election campaigns, the Democrats won the last election campaign, and this Congress now has the lowest approval rate in history of Congress, because they're not addressing what's happening in reality.
I could, well, go ahead. Did you want to?
Well, in defense of two things. One is the amazing thing, and again, I'm a huge proponent of Facebook. The amazing on Facebook and the use case is that it actually facilitates offline relationships in ways you couldn't imagine. So it's not the case that people are on in a terminal by themselves and never getting out. I actually meet up with more people because of Facebook, find out about more events, more about my friends, or more likely to call them or message them. One hand. The second thing is these sites don't actually create the angst that might result in something like Columbine. They may, in some ways, allow you to amplify that voice in the same way you can amplify your voice if you care about Barack Obama or others. And so, again, these aren't creating anything that wasn't latent already. It may help them bubble, but my guess is, they're mitigating circumstances.
That's true. They were also on.
Just stress, I mean, we've always stressed as at Facebook that we're about the facilitation of real community, not the creation of virtual community. That's been the focus from the beginning, is to have this real world communities being brought online and operating in a more efficient environment. So, I mean, there are quite a number of sites that are focused on creating new virtual community. Facebook isn't one of them.
Can I just a very quick thing? It's not to be flip, but it's important to remember, though, every killing in human history has taken place in the real world, not the virtual world. So, and I don't mean that in a flip way. I mean, we really have to, step back and realize this is a vehicle for getting information spreading, and in some cases it's between the lunatics. But I would say on the flip side, I mean, the things we don't hear about are the things that didn't happen, or the lives that were saved because of the internet. I mean, the people who maybe are at a much earlier stage of that insanity, and maybe they get the right help or they connect with the right person that they wouldn't in the real world. And so there's no doubt insanity can spread through different channels and terrible things, but,
When did school shootings start, though? Because these didn't happen 100 years ago, although we had guns.
Well, that's a large societal question.
All right, we got time for just 2 more questions, but it's a good question. Okay, go ahead here, and we got 1 more, and then we have to get going. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is John Breo. I'm with Issue Dynamics. Just wanted to, you have in the evolution of social networks. You start off with Friendster, and then MySpace, and now it looks like Facebook is becoming the social network du jour. What do you see as sort of as the next platform? Is it going to be a virtual world like Second Life, or something, or another iteration of social networks like Ning or something like that?
Can I answer that? Sure. Mobile, I think, is where we're seeing huge adoption rates, especially mobile video and mobile TV, and particularly in minority communities. When you look at mobile usage by Latinos, the primary vehicle that Latinos, at a rate of 60%, in terms of accessing the internet, is through mobile phones. For African Americans, it's 40%. African Americans are actually adopting broadband at twice the rate of whites. So, I think that it's important, and they're adopting mobile TV, mobile video at a rate twice that of whites as well. So I think that it's, important to look at mobile and think about, how, if those are important constituencies for us, as our campaign or as our organization, are we optimized for people accessing our content mobily and sharing that content mobily?
So I'll give a self-serving answer that I happen to think is true as well, is that the focus on real community instead of virtual community is has always been one of the hallmarks of Facebook. It's one of the reasons that it's succeeding now. It was slower to develop for a variety of reasons, and we had a bunch of gating factors in place to make sure that we were focused on real community instead of virtual community, and that's paying great dividends right now. I mean, our growth rate continues to be through the roof. We're well over 53 million active users, adding over 2 million a week right now. So, and we haven't seen any signs of slowdown in that growth rate at all.
Right, and as a Facebook mobile user, I mean, I can attest. It's true. I mean, let's bring it all together. Yep. I think that Facebook mobile, it's actually easier to accept someone as a friend using the mobile application than it is online. So I think that part of the driving force is, the facility with which people can update their friends using the mobile app, receive friends, get news, etc.
Okay, we got just one. Well, actually, I promised this guy just a quick last one here. One more after this.
Hi, Chris Kennedy from Rock the Vote. No one's mentioned Google's new Open Social API, and I'm wondering if we should be looking into that for networking.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I would say potentially, and we're developing an Open Social app, as many people will be doing as well, I think. But it's very early to say. The API doesn't even work entirely properly right now. I think it's got a lot of potential. But I think it's very early stage. And if I'm an organization or a campaign, I'm not going to spend resources. I wouldn't spend resources determining if I'm going to spend a lot on creating a new app itself. Wait to see what comes out there. I don't think you're sort of missing anything in the beginning.
Can you give just a little brief
Open Social
for those that don't know?
Yeah, so Facebook pioneered the idea, in social networking to allow people to build applications inside the framework, taking data and actually creating basic extensions to Facebook. What Google has announced a couple weeks ago is the ability to do something similar for for any social network across the web called a container. So you can effectively build application extensions inside MySpace or inside Ning or High5 or eventually probably many, many of these sites. And the idea is that the last element is you build it once, and it actually is able to effectively plug into all these different sites. Again, very interesting, but it's very early. And if I'm an organization or campaign, I would be very cautious about jumping in.
And then right here, the last question here. Unless
I
didn't
ask it.
Huh?
The question I have was for what? I'm on video. Make sure you record this. So in response to your question to Peter, you said that there were a lot of firewalls up in Facebook for privacy, and I mean, we've seen a lot of those, but there's a lot of rumors that internally there aren't any firewalls, and what is Facebook's policy on that?
That we've had a variety of policies in place around internal access to data from the beginning of Facebook. They have been very rarely violated, and when they are violated, actions taken against the person who violated the policies.
Okay.
There's no, but you don't have like limited access?
No, there is limited access. There's very limited access, in fact. Yep.
Okay, well that, I know I've did a warning thing here, and so I'm going to wrap it up here. So the deal is we had a great panel here. All this is available on the web. All this, you can spread it to folks virally. Basically say, hey, check it out. Each of these will be in their own category. They'll each have their own talk as well as the overarching thing. So if you had one in particular you want to send around, send it around. It'll be on the NPI site, which is here. Also, you can go to the site right now, and you can get this paper that Chris did on this overview of the 5 big things you can do in politics. And you can also get them outside there. And grab the Mother Jones piece, which Simon and I wrote, which I think is a good overview of the whole progressive era. All right, thank you.